You probably woke up this morning to screaming headlines about Donald Trump breaking decades of diplomatic protocol with a single phone call with Taiwan's president. And yes, it is a big deal that the man who will hold the most powerful office in the world seemed to ignore the fact that China considers Taiwan a breakaway province and that no president has had separate diplomatic contact with Taiwan since the 70s. China's foreign ministry says it has already logged a formal complaint with the U.S., but Trump's phone call faux pas is much more than a diplomatic headache. The real story is the giant red flag it throws up about his fitness and readiness to be president, making the drawn-out Trump Tower reality show over his pick for Secretary of State that much more critical. And it's the umpteenth thing to raise the issue of a possible conflict of interest. According to newspapers in Taiwan, a representative of the Trump Organization visited the country last month and expressed interest in developing, surprise, a hotel there. So is Trump's phone call about diplomacy or dollars? And is this the future of international relations under a Trump administration? Back with me are former Governor Howard Dean and Maria Teresa Kumar. So Maria Teresa, you have once again Donald Trump doing something that shows that he has no idea how to president. Like, this is not the way it's supposed to be done. He's not even in yet and he's already caused a diplomatic incident. Is it more troubling that he called or had a conversation with the Taiwanese president and the back and forth on his Twitter over who called who, or that he did so once again in a situation where he's got business interests in place?
I would say it's a combination of both. It's almost not understanding not having a historical perspective of why and how sensitive the relationships that we have with China really are, and at the same time, it's just a laundry list. A week ago, he had that conversation with the Argentinian head of state, and the next day, you know, his project in Argentina was greenlighted. The same thing happened with the Russians. All of a sudden, his Trump project in Russia was greenlighted. So it's a combination of both, and I don't think he knows how to decide if he wants to be a businessman first or if he wants to be the president of the free world.
And you know, Howard Dean, in that context, you have Donald Trump so far building an administration that is full of people who also have great deals of money at stake, business interests, lots of Goldman Sachs. Just to look at the cabinet that he's putting together, The Guardian put together just a little list of them. You've got Todd Ricketts, who's worth $5.3 billion. He wants to put him at Commerce. You have Betsy DeVos. He wants to make her Secretary of Education, $5.1 billion net worth. Wilbur Ross, he wants to put at Commerce, $2.9 billion. Steve Mnuchin, he wants to put him as Treasury Secretary, $46 million. Tom Price at HHS, $13.6 million. He wants Jeff Sessions as Attorney General. We don't know how much he's worth, but we do know his views on race are not exactly forward-thinking. And Elaine Chao, or actually, I'm sorry, we have his net worth up there. But you've got that kind of a cabinet. And then you look at Mnuchin, you zero in on him, and this is a guy whose bank foreclosed on a 90-year-old homeowner over a 27-cent error in their mortgage. So this is not exactly a band of compassionate philanthropic billionaires. These are people who include a guy who essentially profited off the mortgage meltdown. With all of that surrounding Donald Trump and his own pecuniary interests constantly in the news whenever he does something, why would working class Americans believe for 10 seconds that this is going to be an administration that cares about them?
I think the jury's going to be out for now. This I chalk up to a liability that's going to hurt him down the road. Right now, for the most part, Trump gets a honeymoon. We've been through a brutal election. Everybody was upset about the tone of it on all sides. And so I don't think they want to hear about all this right now. But I think the American public, if things start going south, like privatizing Medicare or Social Security, then this is going to become an additional liability. I just want to say one other quick thing about Taiwan, which is really problem. This is not just a diplomatic kerfluffle which offended the Chinese. What the Chinese are doing now is blaming the Taiwanese for that and threatening to use armed force against them. And given what Trump said during the campaign, the question for the Taiwanese is, are we willing to carry out our obligations, treaty obligations to Taiwan, and does he want to commit troops, American troops, to defend Taiwan because he made a stupid phone call? So this is not just about a kerfluffle upsetting the stuffy people of the State Department. This has real consequences, and there was none of that thinking that went into making this phone call. That's the scary thing about Donald Trump.
But isn't it also the case, and I'll throw this to both of you, that you're absolutely right, Howard, that you have now a potential that's beyond, as you said, just hurt feelings, but actual real consequences that could befall the incoming president. But we also don't know if Donald Trump is in debt to banks in China, and if so, how much? We don't know what his own personal liabilities are with regard to the countries that he's creating diplomatic crises with. So isn't his business interest and his conflicts of interest, aren't those germane right now? Not when something goes wrong, but like now.
No, they are. I mean, he clearly is making calls on his own behalf. And the question is, if it's on his kids' behalf, is that going to make any difference? And I think it's going to be a problem. And again, Joy, this is not an issue that's going to inflame the American public right now, but this is going to be one more stone in Donald Trump's baggage, heavy baggage, when things don't go well, and things don't always go well for any American president. So this, his billionaire cabinet, all the other things that he's doing now that he gets away with because people just want the election to go away and stop fighting, all that's going to weigh him down when he does start to get himself into trouble, which happens to every American president.
And something to keep in mind is when you look at what he considers a huge win for Carrier, it was not a huge win for the American taxpayer, and it was all basically a whole bunch of fluff and show and mirrors. And what I feel that he's going to do is that he's going to be very much a showmanship, but when you start digging deep into the stuff that he's actually crafting, whether it's negotiations on behalf of American politics or whether it's trying to create some sort of policy that actually makes sense, it's all going to be very much the fluff, but not the depth.
Yeah, absolutely, and which is why it's very dangerous for us in the media to just read his tweets as if they are news, and it's a problem.
Exactly right.
Howard Dean, thank you very much. Maria Teresa Kumar will be back.